What's good there, guys? What's good? Nice to see you guys back on YouTube. I decided to move my updates and my analysis over from Instagram just basically because of one specific thing. Usually, because I give story updates, we don't normally have enough time to get into these things with enough detail, or with at least with enough, with as much detail as I would like to share. So because of that, I will be doing at least maybe one weekly update on YouTube. We'll just keep it very simple, very straightforward, just me talking to you, showing the chart, and that's about it. So because we're basically just reviving things over here on YouTube, I wanted to just remind you guys, I guess just the most important things of my trading system, of my trading process, just so that we're on the same page, so that you understand going forward why I'm doing what I'm doing and what's the whole entire purpose. So the only two things I want to get into about regarding my trading process are just the functions, which is basically the reasons or the things that help me, or reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and the elements, so the things in my trading process that make it work, the tools that I use. So simply enough, the functions of my trading system are for three things. Number one, to understand the market information that is presented. Number two, for me to make a decision based off that information. Obviously, the decision that I'm trying to make here is I'm trying to make money at the end of the day. So all the decisions that I'm gonna make essentially towards that one specific goal of turning a profit. And number three, obviously, my job is also to manage capital, or the reason why I'm looking at anything on the chart is for me to be able to manage my capital, turn a profit on that capital that I'm managing. Let's get straight into the different elements in my system. So basically, the tools that I'm using. So candlestick theory is number one. Obviously, there some detail on what parts of candlestick theory are important to me. Market structure, number two. There you've got some details on what parts of market structure are important to me. And number three, obviously, nature's theory. There you've got some details on what's important to me on nature's theory. Now, when I guess just be blunt about things, smart money, all of that nice good stuff, whatever concepts you can pull from whichever depths of whatever crevice you can find, all of those things are probably going to be in one of each of these categories that I mentioned before. Whether it's smart money is part of you looking at market structure and obviously candlestick theory, whether it's whatever you want to pull from wherever, it's probably going to be in one of those three things. So anyway, let's get into the analysis. Let me give you guys my details, I guess my thought processes for the coming week, what my plan is, what I would hope to see, and obviously where I'm going to be taking risk. So get into things on a weekly. On a weekly, things are kind of a little bit boring. Obviously, the lower the time frames we get into, the more detail we'll have there, the more interesting things will become. So on a weekly, the only thing that I want to speak about is just obviously, let's look at the individual candlesticks for a moment here. We can clearly see that on this week over here, we've got a nice big red candlestick. Obviously, that shows us that there's a lot of momentum to the downside. And after we saw that momentum, yes, very obvious that the candlesticks that are moving to the upside, including obviously last week's down candlestick, there is a lot less volume than there was going to the downside. So clearly on a weekly time frame, on a higher time frame, there is a lot of momentum to the downside. So that's basically giving us, I guess, information on which direction the money is flowing. Now on a daily, I guess things are gonna stay pretty much the same. We get a little bit more detail on the 4 hour, but on a daily, yes, we've got that downward momentum, and we obviously can see that we're in some sort of a corrective structure right now. Maybe just to speak about the highs and the lows and the structure, so that when we drop down on a smaller time frame, things are a little bit more clear. Let's get a drawing tool over there. Where are we? There we go. So if we're looking at just the structure here, on a daily, the important things to note is that price action, or I guess what I'm looking at, my corrective structure starts from this low over here. Obviously, after we created this low, the next high that we pushed up and created is this high over here. So this is the major high and the major low of whatever corrective structure I am looking at inside of this chart. So for targets, any resistance or the major resistance, if we're obviously trading inside of this chop, or we want to take positions with nice big RR and whatever the case is, the place to make decisions are obviously either at this low or at this high. The place to exit our positions fully are either at that low or at that high. The structure that price is working around is at that low and at that high for me, obviously in my head as I'm making decisions. Now let's clear all of this. I guess that's the only information that I can give you guys on a daily. Things get a lot more interesting on a 4 hour because the structure gets a little bit more detailed. So anyway, on a 4 hour, now that we can see a lot more of the structure, guys, let's talk about the corrective structure. So inside of this entire corrective structure, what we do notice is that price is at the low of this corrective structure right now. So let me get a brush tool over there. Obviously, corrective structure, we've got the low of our corrective structure. Right now, price is at the low of our corrective structure. So obviously, what we're expecting at the low of the corrective structure is for price to obviously give some sort of a rejection. But on the other hand, remember, we are inside of a corrective structure. So inside of any corrective structure, what do we expect prices to do? We expect price of action obviously to break out the downside of the entire corrective structure. So higher time frame, we do know that the momentum is obviously to the downside. We're expecting, because price action is inside of this impulse correction, we're expecting the next impulse to break out to the downside, obviously. But there is an issue, is that we're already at the low of this corrective structure, and that does not warrant us to be looking for short positions. Obviously, based off where price action is now, it makes a lot more sense for us to be looking for bullish positions, or at least long positions from where price action is right now. So now that we have an idea of, I guess, what we're going to be doing on the lower time frames, the context that I'm going into this right now or into next week is where we are right now. We cannot look for bullish positions. For bearish positions, we've got to look for obviously bullish positions because of where price action is right now. We're at the low of, I guess, whatever low you want to call that, maybe just an internal low or whatever the case is there. And we're at the low of this corrective structure in terms of this correction to the side. So we cannot be looking for any short positions where price action is right now because we're at some supports. But the overall context is that I do want to be looking to trade in the direction of the momentum, which is to the downside. Now that I've got that idea, that context, dropping down onto a smaller time frame. Let me undo all of this before we go down, just so that our charts stay nice and clean. Dropping down onto a 1 hour, I guess structure becomes a little bit more detailed. On a 1 hour, I can clearly see that, okay, yes, overall, we're in a corrective structure. There's ways for both buyers and both sellers to make money. But what I can, I guess, point out about the price action is that price action seems to be correcting to the downside. Yes, we're making lower lows, lower highs, or whatever the case is. But if we look at the lows, we're breaking those lows very much correctively. We're breaking below, breaking back above, breaking below, breaking back above. So when we will drop down, obviously down to a 15-minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap on a resistance trend line over there, just obviously to give us context, to help us visualize where we are within whatever's going on right now. Anywho, now that we've got, I guess, just 1 hour structure settled down, what else I want to let's speak about the most recent 1 hour structure, just so that we can start to formulate our plan just a little bit more. On the most recent 1 hour structure, right, since we're at the low or at the support, obviously this resistance trend line over there, we know that we want to be looking for some bullish trading opportunities. Now, looking at the overall structure, we're in a corrective structure over there. This is our major high over here. Obviously, we did not break that major high, but we do have a small internal high over here that we did manage to break. Which momentum shift managed to break that high? Obviously, it's this bullish engulfing candlestick over there. Where did that momentum originate? Right over here. There's our engulfing candlestick over there. There's our bullish order block, if you want to use some what's ICT English. We know that when we do drop down on a lower time frame, this becomes a prime area or a prime zone. Obviously, if price action does correct into this area over here, that's a place where we can find an opportunity to find, or at least to be a little bit bullish in terms of the structure that's going on here. If we are bullish, where do we want to exit that bullish position? We want to exit that bullish position obviously at the next resistance, which is over there at that high. So obviously that's where we're going to manage our risk around. We know that our stops are going to be somewhere below the low. We're going to enter somewhere at that resistance or at that zone over there. And obviously, where's our next resistance? We're targeting over there. That's very much nice risk to reward ratio. Now let's get into, while we're still on 1 hour before we drop down onto a 15 minute, let's get into an idea for a short position, because remember that our overall context is that the momentum is to the downside. And if, or at least what I would like to do is I would like to be part of or trade in the direction of the momentum. So nonetheless, 1 hour time frame, I do have some downside momentum. Let's get back to our drawing tool over there. I do have some downside momentum over here, right? After this downside momentum, unfortunately, this part of the structure doesn't support us to sell right now, but we do have the momentum. We do have a resistance over there. And what we can wait for is obviously inside of this momentum to look for those momentum shifts on a smaller time frame above our resistance over there, so that when price action, or if price action does break above this resistance over there, we can maybe try and find an opportunity to get in the direction of this momentum, which is obviously to the downside. So now that I understand that, okay, on a smaller time frame, when I do drop down, if I'm looking to sell, I want to sell above this resistance over there. And if I'm looking to buy, I do have some small momentum inside of there that I can try and find an opportunity to buy. Obviously, the invalidation would be below that low that we spoke about there on a 1 hour time frame over there. So now that I've got that context, I'm going down onto a 15 minute, obviously to formulate my plans for the week as the structure stands right now. Obviously, do follow on Instagram if you do want weekly or at least updates during the week of how we manage the structure or whatever we do. Nonetheless, let's drop down onto a 15 minutes so that we can talk about the actual positions that we, obviously as structure stands right now, the actual positions that we're going to be looking to take next week. So 15 minute. Remember, we did speak about that 1 hour momentum shift over there. The 1 hour momentum shift is down here. So that's obviously prime area where we're looking to get into a short. But I do have a 5 minute momentum shift inside of here. Obviously, we can see that there is a good enough and very nice push away from this support over there. So on a 5 minute, if I just want to show you this momentum shift over there inside of there, I did highlight a 5 minute momentum shift. Obviously that does give us a trading opportunity. The reason why I might maybe not be looking to take this, or obviously it's open to interpretation, is because we still need to wait for price action or for the market to open, and anything can happen when the market does open. We're in the mood for gapping nowadays, so let's see whether we gap down and do actually get an opportunity to set this first order. But nonetheless, if that first order doesn't work out, then obviously what I'm going to be looking at, or the prime entry, is this 1 hour momentum shift inside of there. There is also a 15 minute momentum shift that you can refine that entry into. So obviously that's our bullish position, our bullish trading opportunity that we might be looking for over there. We did speak about that resistance trend line over there. And obviously, remember the short position inside of this momentum, inside of this momentum that started from that resistance over there. If we want to enter to the downside, obviously we're looking for entries above this resistance. I do have some 5 minute momentum shifts that I'm going to be looking to take some opportunities inside of over there. I don't want to show you on a smaller time frame, that's just going to waste time. And as well as on a very small time above this resistance, obviously that gives us an opportunity if we're looking to take advantage of if we're looking to take advantage of this full momentum. Remember, the first entries that we're looking to take for a short position, let's get our brush tool, just above this resistance, somewhere inside of there. There is also a 4 hour momentum shift, if you guys can see over there. And then obviously above this next resistance, there is also an entry above here. So obviously if we want to capitalize on this full momentum, this full candlestick, then obviously this higher resistance is the move. And if we're looking to capitalize on this short momentum inside of here, then this resistance obviously is the place where I want to be looking for short positions. We did speak about obviously this buy over here. So long story very short is that we're looking to buy from that support structure over there. We're looking to sell from these resistance areas over here if price does get up there. That is the overall, I guess, internal, just obviously based off where structure is right now. But there is also these higher time frame resistance and support areas, one up there and one up there, that both function as targets. Obviously for now, we know that price action is probably going to at some point get to one of these two areas. So they do function as targets. But then at the same time, we know that price action on a higher time frame, I guess we didn't speak about those support structures because they're kind of very old. but also they do function as places, POIs, points of interest, where at a future date in time when price action does eventually get to these points in points in price, where we will be obviously looking for future trading opportunities. Obviously a long off there, that's our first major long, and obviously a short off this resistance area, that's our first major short. So yeah, that's about it. I'm still kind of getting used to giving these updates. As time goes on, we obviously will become a little bit more efficient. I will figure out, I guess, what information is more important to you guys, what information is more relevant, obviously going into the weeks and stuff like that. And yeah, we will polish things up. But anyway, as a first run, just to get things done and to make sure we actually start getting it done, yes, yeah, this is the first video for YouTube. So anyway, that's gold. That's my analysis. These are the areas that I'm looking to. I hope I was detailed enough. I hope I gave you guys a good enough roadmap of what my ideas are for next week. Otherwise, cheers.